from the top down, we must be inclusive.
You have to be loud. You have to be different. The audiences are demanding it.
Good morning. Welcome, everyone. I'm Jamila Daniel, Chief Diversity Officer for Lionsgate and Senior Vice President of HR for STARS. All right, thank you. I'm delighted to welcome you all to today's Take the Lead Transparency Talk. Before we begin, I would like to thank the Recording Academy's Music Collective for their partnership in hosting today's conversation. And thank you to Director Stephen K. Benjamin, Senior Advisor to President Biden and the White House Director of Public Engagement, as well as Michelle Ballantyne, President and Chief Operating Officer for the Recording Industry Association of America, for being here with us. For those who are unfamiliar, Take the Lead is our company's commitment to narratives by, about, and for women and underrepresented audiences. It's what our entire business is built around, from our bold programming to our hiring process. The timing of today's conversation could not be more perfect as we celebrate Black Music Month. As an undeniable global force, Black music is steeped in history, innovation, and resilience. Like our programming at STARS, it serves as a platform where voices and stories of underrepresented audiences can be seen, heard, and celebrated. By amplifying culture and communities through music, we continue to honor its profound impact on television and society, which helps to foster unity and understanding. And that's why I am so excited for you to hear from our panelists, who will discuss the impact this art form has made across spaces and storytelling in television and film. And now I'd like to turn it over to Director Stephen K. Benjamin, who will share a few remarks. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jamila, for using my whole government name. I appreciate it. I want to thank STARS as well and the Recording Academy for having us here. I really want to commend STARS Take the Lead on the Recording Academy's Black Music Collective and these amazing panelists I know you actually came to see. So I'm not going to stay up here the entire time. Every time I get up to speak, people think because I'm a politician, I used to be a mayor, and now I work at the White House, that you love to speak. Every time I get up to speak, I think of the first time I spoke at my home church, St. John Baptist Church in Columbia. When I was done, a little guy came up to me. He said, "I grow up, I'm going to give you some money." I said, "Well, thank you, son, but why?" He said, "Because my daddy said you're one of the poorest speakers we ever had," right? So I figured I'd get up to speak when I actually had something worth saying. And I will tell you, I am so excited about this opportunity to do what so many of this room do every single day, championing diverse voices on screen, behind the camera as well, corporate leadership, civil society. You're doing the work every single day, and hopefully you take the time to celebrate the work that you do every day. As a matter of fact, I am a former mayor, so I usually work the room. I didn't have a chance to do that today. So everyone, just real quick, put your hands up real quick. Shake them like this. All right, shaking hands with everybody in the room. Okay, we're good. We're good. We got it covered. I see y'all in these streets tonight. As we observe Black Music Month, we use this as an opportunity to celebrate the Black artists and creatives whose works have often really been the driving force, the tidal wave for change in this country. If we're talking about James Brown's "I'm Black and I'm Proud," or we're talking about Sam Cooke's "A Change Gonna Come," which is one of my favorites, or "We Shall Overcome," or Shaka Khan's "I'm Every Woman," Marvin Gaye's "What's Going On." You know, the reality is that over the course of history, people have had to realize that as we tell the beautiful and painful story of the African seed and the American sun, that you can take our rhythm, but you gotta have our blues too, all right? And that if we're gonna lead, really lead from the front, as this president and vice president have done from the very beginning, on day one, making a clear commitment that equity would be sacrosanct, a through line in every single law that's been passed, that every single executive order that has come out of the White House over the last 3.5 years, that it had to be real, speaking to not erasing our history, but edifying the fact that Black history is American history. And we've got to make sure we celebrate that every single day. I'll make a couple more points and I'm gonna take my seat, be brief. as you all focus on the next several months and the next 4 years, I can't talk politics, so I'm just going to speak in code, y'all. All right. The reality is that over the last 3.5 years, we have seen an amazing journey. You think about where we started just 3.5 years ago, the greatest pandemic since 1918. It took untold lives, over 1 million people in this country alone, the greatest economic disruption, so maybe since 1929, the Great Depression, and the greatest social unrest after the murder of George Floyd and so many others in 1968, all wrapped up into one. And this president and his historic vice president making a commitment that we were going to right the ship. Historic unemployment, 4% or below for 27, 28 months running. A 60% increase in Black wealth, narrowing the wealth gap more significantly than any time in the last 20 years. More Black businesses started over the last 20 years than any time in history. We're talking about $16 billion to historically Black colleges and universities, a record amount. $160 billion, I better clap for this, $160 billion in student loan debt forgiven. And I know, just statistically speaking, somebody in this room got some debt removed. We're getting the work done, and we need to continue getting the work done together. And that's why, of course, and I'll stop here, in June of 2021, the president signed the Juneteenth National Independence Act, the first national holiday since the birthday of Martin Luther King Jr. was established over 4 decades ago. And it's as a recognition of the fact that stories matter, that our stories matter, that we have to tell the stories, that you all realize, as many of you I know do every single day, that we are standing on the broad shoulders of men and women who will never, ever receive credit for the work that they did in building this country. But more importantly, we realize that our shoulders now are what generations yet unborn are standing on. And we got work to do. So let's celebrate and let's get back to work. God bless y'all.
Thank you, Director Benjamin. On behalf of the Recording Industry Association of America, I'm honored to welcome you into our Washington, D.C. headquarters for another impactful STARS Take the Lead Transparency Talk. Today's topic is extremely personal to me as a Black female executive working to support a more diverse music industry and open up opportunities for all creators. As President and Chief Operating Officer of the RIAA, my life and career have afforded unexpected opportunities beyond my Canadian and Caribbean roots. But my guiding compass has always been to encourage and empower others. We must advocate for a future that allows diverse expression and input, one that values and acknowledges a myriad of voices. Lyrically correct how Black music shapes narratives and influences cultures brings to the forefront a conversation that generations, genres, and the music community must continue to navigate. We have seen the detriment of art misunderstood and lyrics weaponized as evidence in criminal trials, and artificial intelligence that appropriates the actual lived experience of Black storytellers. We must protect our unique perspectives through legislation where necessary and continue to highlight underrepresented communities and make a more equitable future that we can all be proud of. Music has the power to unite even the most outwardly opposite groups. Black creators have often led the way. Recently, hip-hop celebrated 50 years of creating culture through rhymes. From a genre manifesting Block Party in the Bronx to bold female MCs speaking the truth, chart-topping tracks with a purpose, legendary leaders demanding action, and younger artists innovating while respecting the genius of the past. The culture has shifted and evolved because these individuals used their platforms and pulled others up alongside. We must do the ground level work that it takes to actually deliver progress on diversity and representation and not just talk about it. We can't just talk about it, all right? I have the privilege of managing the most diverse RIAA Board of Directors in our history and helping guide the music industry's response to the urgent movement for racial justice and social change and corporate engagement on civil rights. And through my own service work, I've seen firsthand the importance of mentoring and amplifying others. It's very important. We all have to do it. So RIAA is very proud to welcome STARS, the Recording Academy Black Music Collective, and these amazing panelists for today's Transparency Talk. And it's especially an honor to host Congresswoman Sheila Cherfilus McCormick at the RIAA for the first time. It's awesome to have a sister who has shared Caribbean roots in the house. And thank you to each of you here today, and it is now my pleasure to introduce the moderator for today's Transparency Talk, Stephanie Walters. Stephanie is the Director of Engagement and Communications for the organization Yellow, founded in 2020 by musician Pharrell Williams. Yellow approaches education through a unique, transformative method that empowers children from diverse backgrounds to recognize their potential. And Stephanie launched her own storytelling company and vision building studio, Dream Pusher, in 2023 to help women reclaim and accomplish their dreams. I'm very excited about it. Through content creation, media training, lifestyle, and empowerment workshops. Welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you for that kind welcome. So what a thrill it is to be here today with so many distinguished individuals. This conversation on the impact of Black music is so timely and relevant. As someone who works at an NGO founded by an artist and activist who understands the power, reach, and impact of music, I know this panel discussion will resonate with so many of you. Music is one of our most authentic forms of storytelling. Since quite literally the beginning of time, it has provided entertainment and invoked deep feelings in both its performer and listener. It's a powerful narrative, one that can subconsciously affect how we see and treat one another. Much like television, it can make or break stereotypes. And ideally, when executed correctly, as STARS does, it can inspire individuals to see themselves as a rock star, an artist, a doctor, a CEO, or even the President of the United States. STARS does a great job with incorporating musicians into its series. Mary J. Blige and Cliff Method Man Smith in Power Book 2 Ghost, Megan Thee Stallion in P-Valley, Snoop Dogg and 2 Chainz on BMF, and of course, Joey Badass as Unique in Power Book 3 Raising Kanan. In more recent years, during times of strife or unity, music, lyrics, and instruments have proven to be a conduit for artists advocating for issues and using their influence for change. We have so much to get into today. Y'all, we've already kind of had a pre-panel, so this is like the secondary panel you're gonna get. I'd like to introduce our panelists to the stage. So we're gonna start off with Mr. Joey Badass, who grew up in Bed-Stuy, reading the works of Harlem Renaissance writers and beyond. At 17, he dropped his career-launching mixtape, 1999, making him one of the most sought-after young talents in the industry. His 2017 album, All American Badass, showed his chops as a political writer. He plays Unique on STARS' Power Book 3, Raising Kanan, as well as the Academy Award-winning short, Two Distant Strangers. In 2023, he created Impact Mentorship, providing free mentorship to men of color over 18 years old. Welcome, Joey. Next, we're gonna have Derek Big Tank. Thank you. Next, we're gonna have Derek Big Tank, or I call him Big T at this time, Thornton, who is a successful composer and music supervisor, having worked on a wide range of films and shows. Derek is the music supervisor on STARS' Power Book 3, Raising Kanan, Power Book 2, Ghost, Power Book 4, The Force, and BMF. He also worked on Showtime's The Chi, the Netflix film End of the Road, and Apple TV Plus's sports drama series Swagger. He has worked with some of the biggest stars, including the recording industry, including Rihanna, Queen Latifah, and Christina Aguilera. Welcome. Now we'll have Rico Love. Rico Love, you got a fan club in here, is co-chair of the Black Music Collective and a 3-time CSAC Songwriter of the Year. He has written and produced hit records for David Guetta, Usher, Romeo Santos, Nelly, Trey Songz, and Kelly Rowland, and has contributed to Grammy Award-winning works such as Beyonce's 2009 Best Contemporary R&B album, I Am Sasha Fierce. Love continues to enjoy success as a songwriter and producer, but is equally dedicated and passionate about his new music conference venture, the We Love Music Conference, which is designed to educate, inspire, and cultivate up-and-coming talent. Welcome, Rico. Next, we have Congresswoman Sheila Cherfilus McCormick, who is the first Black woman to represent Florida's 20th Congressional District and is presently in her second term. She is the chair of the Diversity and Inclusion Task Force for the Democratic Women's Caucus and co-chair of the Haiti Caucus, and serves as a member of the Congressional Black Caucus. Welcome. And last but not least, we have Dr. Chelsea Green, who is the co-chair of the Black Music Collective and vice chair of the Recording Academy Board of Trustees. She was elected vice chair of the Board of Trustees of the Recording Academy in May of 2023 and actively serves on various committees and in other service roles across the country. A native of Houston, Texas, Dr. Green is a multi-instrumentalist, vocalist, and entrepreneur and educator. Let's welcome our panelists. So this is gonna be a really good conversation. Like I said, we've kind of already had the pre-show, so y'all are just getting the after party at this point. So I wanna start off, we're talking about Black music and its impact. Talk to me about a song or an album or a cultural moment that has defined your life, or maybe even this current moment of life that you're in. And we'll start with you, Joey.
Oh, we're gonna start with me.
We'll start with you.
As you say, to find an album that has impacted my life, the first thing that came to mind was Lauryn Hill, Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. You know, that album impacted me in a lot of ways. I felt like at that time I was like this high when it came out. But I had never heard an artist in the genre of hip hop speak so much towards like a positive impact on the people. Like the effect that doo-wop had on me was like, wow, like we could push these positive, influential messages through the music and, you know, it could really invoke change in our people, you know? So I'd say that one.
Okay, so we're talking about an album?
Album, song.
Oh, goodness. I will say right now in this season, amen, I'm kind of to be churchy, y'all, is Encounter, Todd Galber's record. Because the track, Fear Is Not My Future, it speaks so much to how sometimes our own mindset can block us from what God has destined already for us. And so I just think it's a great reminder to just stay clear and stay focused on what truly is what is guiding you.
Man, this is tough. I would probably say a mixture of Trouble Man by Marvin Gaye. My mom was always playing that in my house. So I just felt like it was what he was talking about then still kind of apropos to today. And the first time I heard the NWA album, we just got to LA and you know, the Bloods and Crips was a big thing. And just somebody was like, it felt like they were street reporters. And I remember at that time thinking like, this was reality, you know, on a record for the first time for me personally. And Dr. Dre's Dr. Dre, you know? So between those two things, just that struggle really defined, you know, myself.
I would say Songs in the Key of Life, Stevie Wonder. And the reason being, when I first heard the album, I remember I went to sleep for 2 days. I was depressed. I was so sad because I thought to myself, if this is what I have to do to make it in the business, I'll never make it. But the reason why I always reflect on that moment and a few other moments I had like that is because there was a standard, there was a level of greatness in music that existed. And there was so much pressure, and it was so tough, and it was so vigorous, and it was such a high level of expectation for creatives that it made a young creative who was coming up frustrated. It made me afraid. It made me nervous about endeavoring in a business. And I wish and I want music to make young creatives feel that way. I want them to feel that pressure. And I remember how it made me sad in a way like, there's no way I'm gonna make it. There's no way I'm gonna be able to do it. But then after that 2-day sleep, I got up and I said, I have to. If he's making a record like this, I have to. So I think Songs in the Key of Life for Stevie was just one of those moments, one of the few moments for me.
Well, for me, it'd be definitely Nas's One Mic. And I think about that every day because of the time that we're living in. Congress is extremely difficult. In my state of Florida, we see every day that we're facing a fight where they're trying to erase our history, promoting to our children that somehow slavery benefited black kids and black families. So that fight every single day, what one mic really does for me is remind me that you really have one opportunity to speak about your trouble, your trauma, to change things. And even though every single day we wake up and I go into the same job, I know that I have one moment, one opportunity to change everything for the entire community. So taking advantage of changing the trajectory of African Americans everywhere, that's really the song that it hypes me up to do that every single day.
Thank you each for sharing that. And along with these songs come these really big cultural musical moments. I mean, we think about the Grammys and the Super Bowl, like who's gonna be performing? Everybody's awaiting that lineup. Y'all watched the Super Bowl this year, seen Usher's performance? Like, yeah. So talk to me about what musical cultural moment completely shifted your mindset, or was like this, whoa, I'm really into this, and this really impacted, my thought process as an industry individual and as just a human being in your existence?
Michael Jackson, The Moonwalk, Motown 25.
Oh, you was ready.
It was one of those moments, and I think when I first saw it, I was 4 years old. I was born in '82. That happened in '81. Right?
Yeah.
So when I first saw it, I knew exactly what I wanted to do or what I wanted to be, what space I wanted to exist in. And I think that moment was not just iconic when I was mature enough to understand the politics and all of the things he did to make that performance happen, all of the things he did to say, I'll only do it if I get this moment. It has to be at this time. I have to perform after my brothers. It was all of these things that he put together as a mastermind, as a genius, as a producer. And I think that was, to me, iconic for me as a 3-year-old, 4-year-old. But then as I became an adult and I started to understand how he put everything together, I had a different respect for him as a creative and as a businessman, because that was a powerful business move to do on the heels of a single being released.
I know for me, when you're growing up, you used to go to dances, right? And so most, you wanted to go to dance, meet some girls, do your thing or whatever. But Jazzy Jeff was DJing at this party at Sherman Square in Sherman Oaks, California. And I literally stood the whole night standing by him just trying to watch his hands, what he was doing, because he was perfect. Like Jazzy Jeff didn't make no mistakes. He's the best DJ I've ever heard. And I was just really getting into DJing and scratching and stuff. And I remember watching him that day and going home. My mom came and got me, and I remember going back home at like 1 o'clock in the morning and DJing in my room in my headphones till maybe 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning until she was like, go to bed. But I remember Jazzy Jeff doing what he did, and he was just so perfect in his craft that it made me want to do that. Like I was like, I want to be as good as Jazzy Jeff.
Yeah, man.
And from that, you start learning all this music and listening to all these different things from calypso to on down. So for me, it was literally the night I watched Jazzy Jeff spin at a party and lost it.
I'll say for me, it was Whitney Houston's Super Bowl national anthem.
Jesus.
Yes, yes. With the Florida Orchestra in 1991, as a string player, to see her sit up there and just so effortlessly, with her tone, with her body, with her whole self, perform that song from the core of her, and just the orchestra was just masterfully accompanying her, and just to see it happen in the middle of the football field, like in the middle of that moment, made it feel so tangible to me that music really, regardless of genre, style, or whatever, can connect people and really impact people in an entirely different level. Yeah.
Well, for me, it would have to be more recently when we started seeing more pregnant women actually performing on stage. When Rihanna performed, I think that was one of the apex, but we've been seeing that consistently for a while. When I got pregnant with my daughter, I was 23 years old, and everybody told me my career was over, I could never be an attorney, because that's the expectation. When you have a baby, especially if you're a single parent, it's a wrap for you. But what happened when we started seeing more women entertainers performing while they were pregnant, doing all kinds of things, it became more acceptable. So even in business now, if you are pregnant and you're there and you show up, they're like, oh, it's okay, you're cool. Whereas before it's like, all right, it's a wrap, when are you leaving? Your career is at a standstill. So I think that's one of the biggest ways I see even in Congress is changing now, that if you are a pregnant woman in Congress now, it's okay. Whereas before it's like, oh, it's done for you. So I think that has impacted the future of women tremendously, along with the pay, because when a woman steps away from work, at that point you have a gap in your resume and it does reduce your pay. So us being able to be in the game, to perform like anybody else, kind of gives us the consistency we need to actually get paid on the same level and have promotions.
I think for me, you know, you guys might be a little mad at me for saying this, but when Kanye West said George Bush doesn't care about black people, yeah, you know, I was in elementary school and I came home. I was in elementary? Yeah, elementary or middle school, something like that. But I came home and I remember seeing it on the TV and seeing how like the guy reacted and how it was this big thing. And I remember feeling like, wow, I've never seen a rapper, hip hop artist have so much like influence or even so much audacity to use their voice to speak for the voiceless. You know, and I remember it just making me feel empowered in that moment to be like, my voice matters, you know what I mean? My people, we matter.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think we all remember that moment.
Oh yeah, how could we forget?
Very vividly. I mean, you remember anything Kanye does, but for you, Congresswoman, we are celebrating Black Music Month, and to his point, kind of, you know, having artists be able to use their voices, but also be able to be celebrated. So why is it important that we are celebrating Black music and its culture at the national scale?
Well, we have to consistently make sure we're taking control of our narrative. As I mentioned, it seems like the way they continue to justify mistreatment of Black people is by retelling the story. And the story they retell always has a perversion in it to say, hey, we deserve to be treated less than. So when we take control of our narrative through music, through dance, what we're doing at that point is we're telling our own stories every single year to the entire country, but we're also making other people empathetic for us. When I grew up, we had Black music and white music. That's just how it was. And so when I see younger kids, my kids are 20 now, and the white kids are singing Black lyrics, at that point, they are empathizing with us. So they're not seeing us as another. And so I think those are the important things about making sure that we tell our story, not just on the East Coast, the West Coast, down South, but through the entire nation, so everyone sees the humanity in Black people, in our music, because it's much harder to hurt someone who you see as yourself.
Wow, that's true. That is so real. And Big Tank, you are overseeing so many different shows and scoring and music production, and I always think about the impact that a theme song for a show has. You know, you think about A Different World, which y'all was based on the real HU, Hampton University. I know we're in Howardtown.
Howard University. Howard, HU.
I had to say.
Howard University.
It's all
Thank you.
HBCU love.
Thank you.
But when you think about theme shows for songs like Shaft and Power and shows like A Different World, it takes you to a place, and the lyrics really resonate for so many years.
100%.
So why do you think the themes are important? I feel like especially for our culture.
I feel like it's the jump off of the show. Like, you know, when you sit down and watch a show, whether it be the Cosby Show from back in the day, or I remember, you know, Fred Sanford show didn't even have lyrics on it, but Quincy Jones killed it. You know what I mean? Like, it was the music on it. You knew it was coming on, and it put you in a mood, you know? So that's why if you change some stuff like 50 tried to for a second, and everybody, yo, we never thought that the world was gonna, you know, react that way. You know what I mean? So it's so important. I remember sitting down when I did the Boondocks theme. I was really trying to just make hip hop and make it resonate with us and like do something that was very us. And 50's doing that with all of the theme songs that he's doing as well. So it really is the jump off of the show, and it just sets the tone for what everybody does. And now people sing along, whether it be the Kanan or whether it be the BMF or whatever, people sing along. It's funny, if you ever look on Twitter, or I think it's called X now, but when you look on there after the beginning of every show, people are always commenting about the theme songs, and that's my favorite one, or this is my favorite one. It's always fun for me just to kind of watch it. So, you know, it really impacts the viewer way more than I think we thought about initially, but it really, really has a big impact.
Since you brought it up, when y'all changed the theme song.
Don't say y'all.
When the team changed the theme song.
There we go, okay.
How did y'all expect that reaction, and how did it make you feel?
Nah, you know, I don't think, at the time, I don't think any of us knew how much that theme song resonated with people.
Really?
And now we knew people liked it, but you didn't think, you know, people would be in an uproar over a theme song.
Right.
You know, because people remix records all the time. You never hear people complain about it, but they went crazy on that song. So changed it right back.
Very quickly.
People have spoken, you know?
Great move, great move.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Now, Joey, for you, your music has really inspired up-and-coming artists, and, you know, you've been very vocal about your views and about your music, but you're also playing this acting role. So talk to me about how important it is to have artists in these positions to be able to use their voices, but also utilize their skills.
Well, I think music gives artists ultimately a platform to tell their stories and to shine light on their perspectives. I think hip hop specifically is one of the most critical forms of storytelling that we know today. And in my opinion, I think it's the most cultural, global force that we have in our lifetime. You know, like hip hop has influenced the way we walk, the way that we talk, the way that we dress, the way that we love, the way that we just be, you know what I'm saying? And I think hip hop has the ability to make people look at something that they otherwise would not look at or not want to look at. And, you know, it gives diverse audiences a front row seat at stories that, you know, would otherwise be unknown to them.
And when you talk about being showcasing the unknown artists and having these experiences, Rico, I think about you because you were able to bridge all of these things together and create these cultural moments through music. And why do you think that it is so important to have these cultural moments and to build upon that in the music industry with the theme songs? Because you cited a lot of your musical influences like the Marvin Gaye, the Miles Davis, the Smokey Robinsons.
Music is the soundtrack of our lives, and in the same way Tank referenced how much that theme song affected the viewers and how the audience was attached to it. There are moments in my life that I can only remember when I think about a song.
Yeah.
When I listen to Lately, the Casey and JoJo version, not the Stevie version, I always get sad because that was a summer where a few of my friends were murdered. When I listen to, More Money, More Problems, I think it makes me excited. I remember getting ready to go to a dance, and I remember being in Parkland Project, YMCA, and going to, things like that. It's moments in our lives that are connected to the songs and are the soundtracks of the greatest movie of all time. Is the one that we write for ourselves, which is our lives. So to be able to be a part of that is very important. I don't take it for granted. I take it very serious, my job, to tell the stories of how people are feeling. I always tell people the song's job is to say the thing that's the most obvious in a way that's never been said before. How do I say I love you without saying it? How do I say I miss you without saying it? How do I speak for the guy who isn't so eloquent and wants to get the girl's number? How do I say the things for him that he doesn't know how to say for himself, that she doesn't know how to say for themselves, that they don't know how to say for themselves? And our job, we have to take it very serious because the music is the bed for everything, our entire existence.
Yeah, leaning into that, what do you think it is about, we call them the legacy artists, that makes their music really so impactful and continue on? Because how you mentioned, the Casey and JoJo's, the guys, we were talking backstage, like the, Jodeci's, like we still feel these things today. And what do you think it is about those individuals that really resonates today?
The portal was smaller, so you had to be exceptionally talented because the door was smaller. And in order to get inside of this door, today there are 600,000 songs uploaded to Spotify every day.
600,000?
600,000 every single day. So if you have 600,000 people who are saying that now the access to the music industry is easy. Okay, so now the level of talent that's gonna be able to be seen is very wide. So to pick what's the most talented out of that is a lot more difficult. So now you're gonna pick what's the person who is the most consistent. Who's the person who keeps posting? Who is the person who's more active on their socials? Who built the following? Who has the best sweaters and the shirts and the jeans? Who looks the best? All of these things, all these variables. I think that the standard was a lot higher. You had every record company, when you go back to Stax, when you go to Motown, they had a crew and a team of songwriters, producers who were at the highest level of their gift, writing for talent who was at the highest level of their gift, with executives who were at the highest level of their gift. That is why it was that much more impactful, because the songs were great, the singers were strong, the conviction was heard and felt, and the story was painted vividly and clearly. I think nowadays, people accept what's there a lot. I think there's so much talent, but I just think it's a lot more difficult for that talent to rise to the top because creatives didn't have the freedom. They had the freedom to take a break and to discover themselves. Now, that break you take, there's going to be a lot of people filling those gaps. So I think it's a lot, to reference those iconic acts is because they had the best of the best operating in every position.
Yep.
Yeah, wow. Dr. Green, I would love for you to kind of piggyback off of that, because with you being a part of the Black Music Collective and the Recording Academy, it's all about creating these equitable spaces and opportunities for Black music professionals to showcase their work. And so kind of where is that balance between being able to upload, 600,000 people uploading songs and you all providing opportunities for musicians and artists to showcase their work in this, community?
I think one of the major words that Rico just mentioned that is really special and important to me is a team. We try to do a lot of things independently these days, and even the most independent of the most independent artists, which is me too, you still have a family. You still have a nucleus that supports you at the core, because you mentioned opportunities. That's what it's about. It's engagement. I truly believe that every single person in this room, whether or not you sing or play an instrument, you are an artist. Every day you have to show up creatively and uniquely in a way that you have to improvise. You have to stay on top of what you are charged to do in this culture and in this society. And truly, that's what helps make the world go round. And I think that as long as we're able to continue to see people, see them for what they have, what is their gifting beyond what is the surface? What are they passionate about? And then how can we include them in a team? I think that's really the core of what diversity, equity, and inclusion is.
And when you think about a team in terms of in Black music, what comes to mind? Because I know people think sometimes to get started, you have to have, every single position.
Sure.
Realistically, you starting off, it's like you, your cousin, your mama, your auntie, and everybody pulling it together.
Yeah, even that friend that says, hey, let me come help you. Let me come help you. I saw that you got some flyers printed. Let me come help you pass out flyers at the show. Like, just somebody that wants to genuinely help from a real place. I think that also helps take some of the load off of you. Because we're doing so much to quote unquote perform. I think when you can have somebody help you carry that load, you show up as an artist better. And you show up with a clearer mind, a clearer heart to actually give the art that you want to create.
Speaking of showing up, Representative Sherfilis McCormick, Black music is thought to be like the soul of America. Everything is built off of Black music, let's just be real. So when you think about artists using their voices and in social and political places, and you mentioned Nas's One Mic and how that made you feel, why is it important and why do you think it resonates so well in the political landscape right now?
Well, I think Black music has always been in our DNA as far as being activist. If you look at even where Haiti became independent, they used it through music, the drums. That was a signal to tell everybody we're going to get up and fight. When we look at even the music that was coming from the U.S. and we were talking about civil rights, it came from our souls. So I think right now what Black music really does for us, it kind of gives a signal that, hey, there's an issue. We need to get up right now and unify and do something about it. So when we think about This Is America, right? It made it very clear to everyone in the United States that this is what America looks like to all of us. And so that's really where I think that Black music touches everyone, because you can feel it, it's in your DNA. It kind of incentivizes you to do something. And it's soul music, right? And so I think we have to always be conscious of that. Even our religious music comes from our soul. It hits you harder. It's not a cerebral conversation. It's more of like, yeah, I feel it, we're gonna do something. And that's what lives with you. That's what energizes you when you go forward.
Yeah, well, and also I think about having the artists really show up in those political spaces, right? We were joking backstage, like last year, Too Short is at the White House. Like, who would have thought? Like, blow the whistle at the White House? But making them actually feel seen and acknowledged, and talk about how important even that is to not only celebrate it, but to invite them into the spaces, because there's a difference.
It's absolutely necessary. And I always say when I meet artists, I'm always like, hey, do you have an issue that you're passionate about? Because one thing that people don't realize is that everyone loves Black music. So when I even spoke to 50, he came in, he was like, well, when I came up to Congress, it felt like a gang because the Democrats and Republicans. And I told him, well, you have to understand, like, your music for us is like you're our people, right? Like that's the CBC, like you're ours. But, Black music, he came in there and the Republicans were like, oh, he's ours. And so that's why it's important that you come in and you're being seen and you're talking about your issue. And we're talking about building Black wealth. And we're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, that you're present, because a lot more people actually empathize, sympathize, and see themselves in your music. music. So we always encourage everyone, what is that issue? How could you change the trajectory of everyone living in the United States? And there's no greater way than to be at the table with representatives, the president, senators, and be sitting right there in front of them and say, this is our issue. You like me, you like my music, you like my acting. How about you help everyone who's like me move forward?
Yes, and that goes into that advocacy component, and art and advocacy go hand in hand. So for Joey and Chelsea, why is it so important, and I say especially right now, that artists are using their voices for change and not just to drop the next hot record? I'll start with you, Joey.
Well, I'd like to caveat that I don't think it's necessary for all artists to do so, because I don't want to make it seem like, I'm getting at the artists who don't.
Right.
But there's a Nina Simone quote that has always resonated with me, and it goes, the artist's duty is to reflect the times. And I've always took that to heart, So for me personally, I think it's important to use my voice, my social currency, to speak for the voiceless, to speak for the people who can't speak, to speak for the people who come from the same places that I come from, and to essentially create more space for these people so that, we can have a larger representation in, these areas that you don't see us in. You don't see us actively in. So that's my mission, as an artist myself. Like, I want to always be leaning in a direction where I'm using my impact to broaden the lanes for others. Yeah. But that's just me, though. I don't think that, like I said, I don't think it's necessary for all artists to do that. And even reflecting back to that Nina Simone quote, even the artists who are just making the music that they make, to Teng's point, like being more of street reporters or just speaking towards their environments, I think that that's all important. You know what I mean? Like we need that aspect of it as well, so that we can amplify what is going on in our communities.
Yeah, I think one of the most special parts of a Grammy telecast is when you're introduced to an artist that you really don't know, but you see them performing on the Grammy stage. So clearly there is a group of people that very much know them. It's an introduction. And one of the initiatives that we do with the Recording Academy is Grammys on the Hill. And we're literally in the offices with the House reps, in the offices with the senators. And it's just always so illuminating to see what they just don't know, who they don't know, or why these issues are a big deal. So when you talk about somebody seeing you and being seen, it's like, hey, this is what could happen to our art. And you're in the position to really help us do this differently. Please support this. Please support what will be cultural legacy moving forward. And we need your help. And I think it's just such a moment of, education. I think any platform where you're engaging with someone about something that they're maybe not as familiar with is truly a classroom. So that is really a lot of, it's a lot of open-mindedness comes to be. And then you also dig into some other issues that you didn't even realize are affecting you.
Yeah, you mentioned cultural legacy, and the first thing kind of that comes to mind is hip hop. Like, it just has influenced so many things. How many of y'all had the jersey dresses, the velour outfits?
We know you had one.
I did. I look like I had the baby fat one, but those are moments like Run DMC, you're wearing the big chains and the big knuckles. For Rico, when you think about hip hop, like how it has influenced what we wear, how we act, how we talk, and what we buy, what makes the genre of hip hop just so influential? Because I feel like no other genre has that influence.
There's a freedom. There's a freedom in poverty, and I'm going to tell you what I mean by that. When you have nothing to lose, you can just unapologetically be yourself, right? So when you're a suburban kid and you have this structure, and on Thursday my mom's going to take me here and I have to do this, and when we get here we have to do this and we have to do this, and I look on the screen and I see these black kids just being themselves freely. It's admirable. It's the same way that all of these artists were looking at this crazy street graffiti artist named Samo in New York City, and they were like, who is he? And you never knew his face, but you saw the Samo tag everywhere, and you've come to find out that was Basquiat. Now, Basquiat is being introduced into this world, and this guy is showing up not combing his hair, and he's like smoking cigarettes inside the galleries. Just before they were doing this, and he was doing anything he wanted to do. And the people who were behind the scenes and who were basing their lives on this robotic structure, they envied it. That's the same thing with hip hop. Sadly, is so significant to recognize Sierra Leone and the Blood Diamonds, because the same thing happens. If diamonds are just a resource for me, then I don't appreciate it in the same way the rest of the world does. That way, somebody comes to me and says, I'll give you these guns if you give me these diamonds. So I'm gonna put these guns in your hand, and what do guns do? Guns shoot, and they destroy, and they kill. So we're gonna give you these weapons of destruction, and we're gonna trade them for these beautiful diamonds that are priceless to us. And I think that hip hop has to be careful, because over time, they take what we have, they take these diamonds, and then they give us weapons, and then they tell us to point them at each other, and we're gonna do all of these great, beautiful things with these diamonds and create wealth for ourselves, something that you have a wealth of, and we're gonna take it from you. And then they're gonna look up and you're gonna see on Billboard, it says hip hop is losing its steam in the streaming world.
Right.
Why? Because country is taking hip hop and said, we're gonna make a hip hop country rapper. And then Papa says, all right, we're gonna take this genre and the vibe and the trap vibe and the bounce, we're gonna take it and use this. Oh, New Jersey house that's in right now? Oh, cool, let's put a pop face on top of that. They take everything that we do, they borrow it because they see the freedom of it. There's a freedom inside of poverty. There's a fearlessness inside of it. And that's why I always tell people you gotta hustle like you're hungry, because that freedom in poverty is what creates the magic. The only problem is we have to learn how to control the magic and control it from the ground up, and learn how to use our resources to build wealth for ourselves and not just trade them for guns.
Mic drop. And when you mentioned like just the freedom and the feeling, and Tank, when you are executing all of these shows and creating these emotions and feelings, you have to be very selective and very like carefully crafted what the feeling that you want the viewer to, feel. So talk about how you select and choose the right song, especially for shows like BMF. I mean, that's a very specific, genre of show.
When you're watching these scenes, they're telling you, at least I feel, they're telling me what song to put there. It's even more than lyric, it's about the emotion of the song. Like, I feel like if I put the right song in the right scene, I'm gonna create magic, right? So, like, I've literally done this and gotten someone a record deal from a song they put in a TV show, which is, from what I know, never happened before, Rico. But the song blew up because of the way the song hit in that scene and the way it resonated with people. So when I'm watching the scene, I'm really thinking to myself, what's gonna make the person watching it feel it? Whether on BMF, when we put, when I thought to put "You Can't Stop the Rain," Lamar is singing that as he's doing his thing.
Oh, that was a
classic.
At that time, it just felt right. There was something that was juxtaposed in that felt like that emotion is the one that it needs to have. So when you put that in there, and then the actor does, an amazing job, because it's just an idea for me, but he carried the whole thing out. When you see it, and then 3 days later, Fab and Dave each put out a record using that sample, and they even took a piece of the show and put it on there. It like changes the culture, and you start to really understand how much people are watching it and how much they pay attention to it and how much it resonates in their soul that these guys went out. These are two big rappers that went out, took a little piece of that TV show and made a whole song over that thing. So, for me, I'm really watching the scene, and I want to help Joey's story, right? When he's doing his thing, I want to be able to add to him and elevate him as much as possible. So that's really what my goal is when I'm trying to do these shows.
Yeah. And as an actor who kills scenes quite literally.
For real.
For real. Literally. And with you being on Power Book 3, Raising Kanan, and then also starring in the Academy Award-winning short film, Two Distant Strangers, a film that examined the deaths of Black Americans during encounters with the police. I can only imagine how impactful and, the headspace that you had to get in for that. And so talk about the importance of, having actors and musicians making those transitions into the film industry, because it's not easy. You make it look very good. I know it's a lot of rehearsals and work, but talk about the thought process, especially when you have to do things like, talk about police brutality and some of these really tough conversations that have to be had.
Right. Well, I don't look at it as a transition. I look at it more as an extension because I view myself overall, as a storyteller. And I think acting just gives me another lane to tell stories, right? And when I took on that role, Two Distant Strangers, I almost turned it down because I was at a point in my life where I had done a lot of healing and I was at peace with myself. And I knew that this role was going to it was gonna make me have to go to places that like I've been before and that I didn't really want to be in. But when I looked at it, I said, you know what? This is important to tell this story. It's important to have this message spread, and I think that I'm the perfect candidate to do so. So I took it on, and I think that that's pretty much how I weigh out all of the options when it comes to different roles that I take. Is I'm very mindful of what the impact will be. Like, it's interesting because the role of Unique is something that I avoided for a long time. Because I didn't want to get pigeonholed into, drug dealer, stereotype, or, which they always the box that they always put us in. I wanted to show people that I can actually act. And, so I did Mr. Robot, I did the short film, and I was like, okay, cool, maybe I could have a little fun. Maybe I could, because this is still our story, you know what I'm saying? This is still a part of our culture and how we grew up. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna take this one on.
Yeah.
For sure.
And you mentioned healing, and then Rico mentioned, just having the existence of hip hop just play a major role in every single facet of our community. What about Black culture and Black music? And this is for each of you. What about those things do you think has healing powers for you?
Generally, music is a healer. When you think about slaves, they had to get through the day, and it passed the time. So they were writing songs as they were going. The melody soothed us. When we rock from side to side and you hum and you putting your baby to sleep, or you want to comfort yourself or comfort to anything. You play the album. When I was growing up on Saturday mornings, you hear that vacuum going, and you hear, the eyes.
Temptations, right.
The eyes is going. You knew it was time to clean up because your mother had to pass the time. She had to get through this day. So I think that it's not just a healer. I think that it comforts us through time and it helps us get through difficult periods. And it reminds us of things that we need to know, and it kind of elevates us to places we want to go. So I think the music is it's all encompassing. It takes on this role of provider, comforter, nurturer, and healer.
Yeah. And to add on to that, I think music is a vehicle of escapism, right? Like it gives us the opportunity to escape what our current reality is. Like sometimes the reality is a little bit too daunting, and there's many different coping mechanisms that we can take, but a lot of the times I know music has been there for every one of us, to guide us through whatever it is. Like there's literally a song for every hardship in life. And I think that that's a beautiful thing, and the more you tell your story through music, the more you'll see how relatable it is to people.
There was an artist, Knowledge. He wrote a song about suicide, and he felt like it would be a song that would kind of go unnoticed. And then when he performed it in front of like 20,000 kids, he saw they brought them together. And you realize that we're not so different. I think music reminds us of that. When I was a kid, there was a basketball drill where you put the basketball in the middle, one person run from the other side, this person runs from this side. Whoever gets the ball first wins. Ever so often, you get there at the same time, and you're forced to look at each other. And I think that music does that. You show up to this same space to hear this one thing, and you look to your neighbor and you see he's crying, and you look to the other neighbor, you see that they're crying, you look over here, you see that she's crying, and you realize, okay, I'm not the only person who feels this.
Right.
It makes me want to wake up tomorrow because I'm not alone.
Right.
And there's only one time that I've ever contemplated anything like that, and the reason why was because I felt alone. When I looked up and realized that I wasn't, it gave me a purpose, and it reminded me like, okay, I'm gonna be okay. At the worst, whatever happens, I know that it's not just me. And I think music does that for people.
And music, yeah, absolutely. I think music quite literally is life. As a vocalist, you have to breathe. You have to use your air to produce it. Violins and string instruments are made out of the wood. It's a certain type of wood and how it's carved to create a sound. Wind instruments, you have to breathe a certain way into the mouthpiece to make the sound. So your body has to be at a certain level of health to even produce it. And when we can't get there, we have to revisit what is wrong here to be able to execute. And that truly is the power, because even if you're not the one behind the instrument and you're in the audience singing along, even if you know you can't reach that high note, you're gonna try. Because it's that passion, it's that soul connection that makes you wanna reach to that next level. And that truly is the power of what music can do.
For sure.
I'm not gonna try. I can't hit that high note.
I think you should try right now.
No, I know I ain't got that.
How about you, Congresswoman?
That connectivity also, it goes beyond city, state, internationally. When I travel internationally, when you hear the songs that connect people, the trauma that connects people, it makes everyone realize that we're all in this together. And so our fight becomes an international fight. Our fight for justice is international now. Our liberation now becomes a liberation that's international, that we all want to engage in. And we start seeing the entire world transform.
And as we close out this panel, I mean, we're talking today in the present, but everybody in this room is setting up the stage for the next generation. And so, Congresswoman, I'll start with you, and everybody can answer this question. What is your hope for the next generation in terms of Black music, and then how they'll be able to use art and culture and infuse it together?
My biggest hope is that right now we see that this country is very divided and very polarized. And so I'm hoping that as Black music starts becoming more dynamic, and we're actually giving homage and paying homage to Black people in country in different atmospheres, that we'll see it becoming more unified. Because it seems like we have people on one side of the world saying, this is how life needs to be and this is who needs to dominate. But Black music always brings us together. So if it could bring us together socially, I think that we'll start seeing a political shift where it's not so much extreme and zero sum, like for you to win, that means I lose. And so that's what my hope is, that our kids will start fostering more music and start seeing one community instead of this divided communities that we see now.
I would say my hope is that whenever they use us to check off a box, whenever they try to say, okay, we need a Black woman, okay, we need a Black man, I think that we should call them out for it when we get there. And we should let them know that I know that you used me to fill in this space. I know that you're trying to check, it's a checklist for you all, but I want you to know that there's talent in our community, and I want to shine a light on that talent. I think that DEI is very important. I think what's happening now is this death of DEI, because people are resenting it. And I think that what's going to happen, because they're removing a lot of DEI, is going to be the exact opposite. It's going to be a reverse. It's going to be a rage against people of color. It's going to be a rage against people with different sexual orientations. It's going to be a rage against women. All of these things, because the powers that be are going to resent this time they had to deal with this DEI. And now that they're removing it, you're going to realize we're going to need it more than ever, because it's going to be a war against us. And I think that I would want the next generation to recognize that and to be unapologetically themselves, to fight for their rights, to fight for their voices, to fight for the fact that they're different, to be okay with their names, learn it, say it correctly, and respect my space and my freedom, and not just my talent that you want to portray, or not just the fact that I'm the person that fits the criteria that you need to check off this box.
And I think it was fun. For myself, the space that I'm in, there's just not a lot of African Americans. As a music supervisor, they just don't allow us a lot of opportunities to run TV shows. So to be able to bring up the next generation of that, and also to be the conduit to allow so many of these good independent artists to actually get their songs on TV shows. Like, the more that I can do, and I can bring up others underneath that and have them also offer those opportunities to different shows, I think it opens up so much for us. So for me personally, I'm like working with a couple guys and girls now that I'm bringing up so that the next generation of Black music supervisors will be a lot of it'll just be more of us and more diversity. And we won't only do Black shows, we can do any kind of show. I can do anything. So I'm hoping and praying that we get those opportunities, but I'm going to make sure that they're ready to take them when those times do come.
Absolutely. I want the babies to play instruments. I want them to click their phones off and close those lids on a laptop and get in the practice room and connect to an instrument, piano, whatever it is that resonates with you. Learn how to play it, learn how to read music, learn how to write the music, learn how to write the chord chart, learn how to engage with a live band, and look back on our ancestors that paved the way for us to even be here in this space today. The Florence Price, the Marcus Thompsons, the Ann Hobsons, the Mary Lou Williams, like the icons of jazz, classical, gospel, like we could go down the list and just really celebrate all the different iterations of what Black music is and how all of them collectively brought us to where we are here and how they all genres really inspire each other. So really just keeping that focus on making live music. Technology can never take that away from us.
Yeah. My hope is that more artists will become more conscious about the messages that they pushing forward. And, you know, not only the messages, but the imagery as well, because, you know, music is such a subconscious type of force. Like, whatever you listen to ultimately has an effect on your life, right? Like, if you listen to a bunch of trap music, you're gonna have that trap mentality. But speaking of trap music, another hope that I have is that hip hop does get its recognition in all of the subgenres it has created, because I believe that hip hop is synonymous to rock and roll, right? Like, from rock and roll came soft rock, came heavy metal, came whatever else they got out there, and they got the categories present at the Grammys for that stuff. You know what I'm saying? So I think hip hop needs to be recognized in that light as well. Like, we have trap music, we have melodic rap, we have traditional rap or boom bap, and I think that it needs that recognition, because to Tank's point and to Rico's point is like, we keep just getting enveloped, you know what I'm saying, into just one thing, or here's the space for the Black person. Yep. You know what I mean? And really what we need to do is create as much space as possible, because we're not simple, we're actually vast. We are a vast people. Like, they keep trying to make us a swimming pool when we are an ocean, you know, so.
Okay. Beautiful way to close out this panel. Representative Shirlifis McCormick, Rico Love, Big Tank, Dr. Chelsea Green, Joey Badass, thank you all for this. I feel like we were in class today. Thank you for this conversation. And also shout out to Mekhi Curtis from Raising Canaan, and shout out to Candace Dillard Bassett in the front row. Wave your hands. And thank you again to STARS and for this opportunity to be here and talk about Black Music Month. And so to learn more about STARS' efforts around diversity, inclusion, equity, and accessibility, please go to stars.com/take the lead. Thank you everyone for participating.